What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today I wanted to discuss an interesting topic, in my opinion. Who was the best mass monster bodybuilder to ever hit the Ab&thigh pose? Now, why am I talking about this in particular? Well, because the Ab&thigh pose is more of an aesthetic pose. Out of the 8 mandatories, I think it's probably the most suited to the aesthetic looking bodybuilders, and the midsection is not one of the best features of mass monsters usually. So the mass monsters that hit this pose in particular well deserve a lot of credit as I see it. So I'm gonna go through them quickly and explain why I think their ab and thigh looks good, but you can see for yourself if you like what it looks like, of course. First is Nick Walker, who is, of course, pretty new to the bodybuilding scene, but he has already shown great things. He has placed at the Olympia very well, so high praise. And his Evan typos is surely not aesthetic. Let me get that out of the way. I don't think it looks very aesthetic, but nevertheless, it's very good because his abs are well separated and the thighs look pretty good too. It's just too bad Nick's waistline is pretty wide and he has pretty wide obliques as well. It would sure look much better if he had a better X frame and V taper in this pose. But still a pretty solid ab and thigh for a guy that's as thickly built as Nick Walker. And here we have Branch Warren, who also looks pretty aesthetic, I guess, in this pose. For who he was, definitely aesthetic. He has got insane lower body development. He was renowned for that, and he really did have awesome quads and calves too, as you can see in the pose. He looks very bottom heavy, but the thigh is pretty important in the ab and thigh pose, so why not? The midsection is not picture perfect, but it's not horrible either, and the V taper looks pretty good. He's surely got a smaller waistline than, for example, Nick. So, Branch Warren, although he was one of the most unaesthetic bodybuilders of all time, I guess, he looks good in this aesthetic pose. And this is another shorter, thickly built bodybuilder, Rolly Winkler, the Dutch beast, of course. And to be honest, I never really knew what to think about his ab and thigh pose. On one hand, it looks very good because he has a decent V taper and he has pretty good abs, but on the other hand, it's not really that effective considering his thighs are not the best in the world, and overall the pose looks a little bit strange. It definitely looks like a something that nobody else does. It's a very distinct pose. Probably, I think we would never mistake him for anyone else in this position. So, let me know if you think this is a good ab-and-thigh or a bad one. This is our current Mestro, Big Ramy, and he hits a decent ab-and-thigh, I guess. Once again, not the most aesthetic, but aesthetic enough to get the job done. He has the huge quads, of course. They used to be better, in my opinion. Like you can see in the pictures on the far left and far right, the quads look much better, as I see it, than they do in the two pictures towards the middle, which are newer. But his quads didn't even get smaller. They got bigger probably. They just lost aesthetics because they just look very unshapely nowadays, I feel like. But that's no disrespect. That's just the way his quads look, I guess. And he's got a small enough waistline, and the midsection doesn't look terrible. So I think overall, with the crazy thighs, this pose works well for Big Ramy. as well as it did for the Predator, Kai Green. He's got awesome quad feathering, and his quads look really aesthetic in this pose. Unlike Ramy's, they just show great shape and lines. Kai doesn't have the smallest waistline ever, but he's got huge, low inserted lats, so his V-taper actually looks quite quite decent. It could sure be better. He could show more of an X-frame, and that would help very much in this pose. But his midsection is not bad at all, so this is a very decent Ab&thigh. Sure, he was beating Phil Heath in it for most of their careers. And this is a lesser known guy, I guess, Mustafa Mohammed. He is from the 2000s, and he looks quite amazing in the Ab&thigh. He has got a very good midsection, actually, a great six-pack, well shaped. We can see that in all of these pictures, although some of them are not the best quality, and I apologize for that. Anyway, he is very, very thick in the lower body. That's really the standout feature here, I guess. He had really amazing big quads, although not the most shredded or separated. They look very good in this pose, and he's got a good V-taper. So overall, this guy really surprised me. He looks great in this pose. And we have this mass monster, Mr. Olympia, Jay Cutler, and not a lot of people regard his Ab&thigh as one of the best of all time. They say his abs are a little bit too messy and asymmetrical, and I agree with that. His midsection is definitely not perfect, but he's got his trademark quads, of course. He's got great feathering in them, and all the three heads that are visible of the quad look exceptionally developed and well separated, and he really knows how to showcase that in his Ab&thigh pose. So the lower body looks good. Once again, it's too bad Jay's waist was so wide. If he had a smaller waist and a better V-taper, sure, the Ab&thigh would look much better on him. And another entry in my video is going to be Dorian Yates from the 90s this time. He had a decent Ab&thigh for the mass monster that he was, for sure. Once again, here in this pose, he's not very aesthetic, but he is overall very well developed. For one, look at his quads. His teardrops surely look very good, although he doesn't have the best overall quad development. He's got very good looking teardrops and the sartorius too. The midsection could sure be a lot worse, especially when he was in his younger days. He had a very streamlined waist, so that's good. And the lats, of course, one of the trademark features of Dorian, regarded as the best lats of all time. They look amazing in this pose. They jump out from his sides, which looks great. And he also hits the pose very well, as I see it. But if you ask me, there is a 90s mass monster that hits the pose even better, and that's Paul Delatte, with his amazing separation of the six-pack and great legs too. His calves look awesome, and the quads look massive, although they are not the most shredded. They look amazing. He's got a tiny waistline for the size of him, definitely a tiny waistline, and he's got a shredded six-pack and great lats that shout out from his sides once again, so he looks very good in this Ab&thigh pose. He looks quite aesthetic too. I guess he is sort of a mixture of aesthetics and mass monster in a lot of poses. For example, in the most muscular, he looks like an absolute freak, but in this Ab&thigh, he looks like he could be a classic physique competitor, don't you think? But honestly, I personally think this man tops the list of the best mass monsters to ever hit the Ab&thigh pose, and that's Nasser El Somebody. I find he looks the best, just plain the best out of all of these entries. He sure looks more massive and freaky than Paul Dillette, so if you want the most aesthetic Ab&thigh of a mass monster, I think Paul is the clear winner, but Nasser just looks so thickly developed, and at the same time, he maintains a very small waistline and crazy legs too. A crazy V-taper. Look at his lats. They look to be even more impressive than Dorian Yates' lats in this pose, which is quite amazing. But look at the vascularity there. It's like two balls under his armpits, which is a funny way to think about it. But the V-taper looks supreme. The waistline is very small for a mass monster, and the quads are displayed so well that they make for an awesome X-frame. The calves displayed there look good too. I mean, I don't really have anything against this pose on Nasser El Somebody. I think he hit it supremely. Let me know what you thought about this video idea and what you thought about my commentary on it. And do you think there is someone I missed or someone I shouldn't have put in? I would like to know all of that. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some Ab&thigh videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.